And now we reach my peak hater moment. And then the ending happened and I was like, oh, it was really strange that it had these like high highs and these incredibly low lows. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another reading wrap-up. This is for March. My name is Cari. Thank you for being here. And what a roller coaster. I'm not even prepared. I don't even have my list up. Hold on. Yes, indeed. Oh my gosh. Looking at my list. What a roller coaster of a month this was. I am so pleased by the books that I read in the beginning of this month so that you guys cannot just call me a hater, because by the end of this month, I felt broken. I felt like I wasn't reading correctly based on kind of the expectations or the reactions that I know other readers had with certain books that I did not have. So at least in the beginning of the month, I felt like I enjoyed reading. And this was actually a better month than I thought. The end of the month is either really good or really bad for me, and I feel like this was just kind of like a dud of an end of March. And I feel like some of you guys would know what I'm talking about, because I feel like this month you got a lot more behind the scenes stuff from me, along with live reading reactions on BookTube. I do have other platforms that you can check me out on, and I'm kind of I'm updating those more frequently, which leads me to thank none other than Squarespace, who is sponsoring this video. I have hosted a blog thanks to Squarespace for many years. Squarespace is where you can host any kind of online presence. So for me, that is blogging, but they have monetization features. So if you would ever like to open a shop, they have a lot of community tools like comment sections, email list. They have membership subscription abilities. They have great analytics to help you understand your audience, and they have really easy, free, beautiful templates to use so you can make your website look really beautiful really quickly. Great for if you're trying to have a portfolio or somewhere to lead people to as kind of like your professional footprint online. So many uses for Squarespace. So if you would like to give it a try, you can go to squarespace.com right now and just click a bunch of buttons and set up a website, see how it looks. And then when you are ready to launch to the public, you can go to squarespace.com/caricanread to get 10% off of your website or domain. Thank you as always to Squarespace, and thank you as always to Seoul's spring weather for having the most blustery skies. You're gonna be seeing a lot of shadows. We had snow yesterday. I'm filming this on March 30th. I really don't, guys. It's almost like Seoul is divided in half. So tangent time, as usual. Seoul is a very, very, very big city, and I was on the other side of it yesterday, and cherry blossoms fully bloomed, like out. My side, for whatever reason, winter. I am still in the winter court, and I don't know what to do about it. And yeah, is it potentially snowing right now? I think I just saw flurries. So anyway, yeah, we've got clouds racing across the sky. Maybe flurries. I don't know what's going on. So just welcome to the light show in my house. We're gonna dive in. How many books did I read? I'm not gonna count them. I DNF'd a lot, so this list is kind of a mess. Let me dive in. Starting off, okay. We started off this month in a weird space. I think I technically started this at the end of February and finished it the very first day of March. Oh, I have it. Hey, this was from Book of the Month last month. Yeah, this was this was the March 2025 pick for Book of the Month. Wild Dark Shore. What a weird little book. So what this book is about, it's about a family that lives on this really remote island, and it is described as being in between the tip of Antarctica and Australia. So it's kind of in that weird, very southern space. And I'll put maybe a picture. I'll put like a picture up here of the specific island that she mentions. And it's basically a seed bank. I know that they have those in like Norway and stuff. I'm fascinated by those. But yeah, this is a seed bank because it's never discussed, but I think this is a bit in the future where climate change is even further along. And we're really needing to protect our food sources and things like that. So this family basically just is on the island protecting that, and kind of they are the stewards of the island as different scientists come in and out and stuff like that. But one day a woman washes up on shore. How do you wash up on shore of a practically Antarctic island? Unclear. A little weird. Everyone is hiding something. Everyone seems sus. Everyone, it feels very eerie. The family has 3 youngish children who have basically been raised here, so they're just very odd. Not really raised by wolves, but kind of like raised by a mixture of seals and scientists, which is a odd combination. Almost got a little magical realism to it, especially I feel like the daughter. It was just altogether odd, but I couldn't stop reading it, and I cannot believe the ending. I was thinking like, oh wow, this is a really atmospheric book. I definitely know people who would love it. Like, this wasn't my favorite book of the year, but I know people would absolutely eat this up. So ready to talk about it. And then the ending happened and I was like, oh, pardon? So wow, this was so bizarre. According to my notes, I wrote that the timeline was very odd. So we get kind of flashbacks throughout. I also said that I kind of figured out the web of secrets almost immediately. Like, I just had a hunch. If you're a person who just like gets gut feelings really easily and you're usually right, I'm just saying you might put the pieces together quite quickly, but it didn't make it any less addicting in a way. But I wrote that I never saw the last 20 pages coming. Yeah, this is a dark, wild short. Apparently this author really specializes in kind of climate disaster-esque dramas. Apparently Migrations. She wrote a book called Migrations that everyone said I should read, and I definitely will, but I need to like take a moment. But yeah, this was like super duper bizarre, and in a good way. I don't think everyone would love it, but if you love a kind of eerie, creeping thriller with a lot of really wonderful descriptions of a very bizarre wildlife, like this is a really unique island habitat, and just people acting weird. That is a dark, wild shore. A wild, dark shore. I can read. Cari can read. All right, there it is. After that, very quickly, I DNF'd Carnality. This should have been right up my alley because I love nuns. I love reading about nuns. Put it down at 30% because there were like no nuns. There was one nun and she was just like a shadow creature. Oh, I read to 40%? Okay, sure, Cari, whatever. According to my notes, I DNF'd it at 40%. It's like a couples therapy show run by nuns that may or may not have like a supernatural quality to it. It takes place in Spain. I don't know. Like, kind of washed my brain of it a little bit, but yeah. If you were reading it for the nuns, I wanted more nuns. DNF'd. Carnality. After that, a book that I didn't finish, but it wasn't like a hard DNF. It was more like this wasn't for me. I took off the dust jacket, but I got an arc, and I believe it's out already, A Language of Dragons. I put it down here, and I'm gonna be honest, I skimmed a lot of it before I put it down. This is just a younger young adult than I like reading, and it didn't really deliver the things that I was hoping it would. Like, the title makes you think there would be a little bit more linguistics involved, and our main character is a linguist, but it wasn't discussed in depth in the way that I would have liked it to. According to my notes, I liked the setup, but wished the plot was a little faster. A lot of what drives the plot is the war, but we hear about the war briefly from a radio. So we are basically this is difficult to explain. We're in a world where there are dragons, and there was like a war against dragons, and society is now like very strictly, it's like a caste system kind of thing. You can very easily be demoted and have like no human rights kind of thing. So our main girl starts the story in a pretty high-ranking household, but when her parents are discovered as being involved in the rebellion, like basically being pro-dragon, I'm not really sure. She's forced to join kind of like a code-breaking squad for the current government, the government that her parents were rebelling against, right? So she is on the side of the baddies, let's say, but she's doing it in order to save herself, her cousin who just got locked up, potentially her parents. She's trying to be a bargaining chip to get her parents out of jail. And so she's very naive. She was very shocked by her parents being part of the rebellion. She was very loyal, and like, she's just very ambitious and likes to play by rules that are given to her. So she was very happy to kind of play along with the government that she has been raised with, until she starts to see cracks in things and starts to wonder why the people she loves the most were part of the rebellion. And yeah, so we're basically at this like code breaking camp where they're trying to learn more about dragons and their magic. I don't know. I feel like if I read this when I was maybe in middle school or younger, I would have liked it. This felt very young adult. A Language of Dragons. Let me know if you have read it. Was it worth finishing? Wanted more language. After that, I read another thriller. This was called The Inheritance. I think I saw it on like a list of exciting new releases. So I went into it knowing pretty much nothing, just that it was a thriller, and I am assuming it was about a will and a lot of money. Okay. It's about a incredibly wealthy family that the father is expected to be breaking up his company and kind of dividing the assets between the three siblings. And so they all kind of go to, one of the siblings has just renovated this Scottish island and castle thing. So they're all going to go there, celebrate their dad's retirement and this big sale, and then read the will and figure out who's going to be the richest sibling. And that's that. Okay, it's told in, I think, 2, if not 3 different POVs. My initial issue with it, number 1, the main POV that we are in is she's an influencer. And like, whatever, I too. Social media is also my job. But for her, she's the kind of influencer that is like, tries to make herself look perfect, and she will like buy fake handbags or like rent a handbag so that she can show her followers like, yes, I have a designer handbag. And then she'll just return it, you know, like clearly faking a lifestyle. And she's just very obsessed with things. And I think that this was written by someone who's not an influencer, because she's also getting these really threatening messages when she could just block this person. And I don't know why she never does. Like, it's so like her whole storyline just hinges on the fact that she has this like really creepy person in her DMs, and it's like, babe, block? Like, what? So I had that issue with it. And I also just had the issue that I didn't like a single character. I was sort of like, if this Scottish island were to be swallowed up by the sea and all like 12 of you guys perish, I would not really care. So when it came down to things are starting to get really scary and people are in danger, I'm sort of like, well, you know. So yeah, unless you're like in real dire straits and you just need to read a thriller, this wasn't fantastic. I also wonder how, so the background, this family and the author, they are from India, immigrated to the UK. And so the kids were raised in the UK, but the parents are still very like traditional in kind of the way that they view family. I really wonder if the author is married and what her relationship is like with her mother-in-law, because the mother-in-law and honestly, and the father-in-law of this family are just like pills. And yeah, I would just love to know the drama behind the scenes. What is the author's experience with her married life? Yeah, The Inheritance, I would say you could pass unless you really like seeing unlikable, incredibly wealthy people just like run around a house being kind of scared. Which, you know, that's The Inheritance. After that, I read The River Has Roots. I was waiting for it at the library. This is the first work by this author after This Is How You Lose the Time War. And you know what? I feel like people need to know what it's like before you go into it with any kind of expectations. This was a very short kind of fairy tale that to me was really just an exercise in imagination and what you can do with words. And it was much more about sisters. I think the way that it was set up, I thought it was going to be, we were like learning about sisterhood and then we were learning about the romance, and romance is a big thread in this book, but really about the love between sisters. I don't think this would be for everyone, but for me, this just was refreshing and made me think about writing and what you can do with words, right? So in my notes, I said that it was palate cleansing, sweet, and I loved the magic system. So the magic in this world is all based around grammar. The words that she uses are like conjugating or translating, and she even calls magic just grammar. And so the way that she literally plays with words is part of the magic system, and I thought that that was just really, just so lovely. And so yeah, I would say kind of temper your expectations of it. I personally really appreciated it, just as someone who has kind of read fantasy that has been rather repetitive recently. This was a lovely way to remember that magic is magic, and you can be bizarre and play with things and do things that no one's ever done before. And I definitely recommend The River Has Roots. And then a confession. I have been working on this book for a while. So I mentioned this last month. I think I mentioned it the month before. I'm currently reading Another Country by James Baldwin. I read to page 80, which is the first chapter, and I expect James Baldwin to make me depressed, but I just kind of wasn't ready. Oh, sorry guys, I need to sign up for my Pilates class. It's like buying concert tickets at this point. Great, I've done it. Anyway, I wasn't expecting this to get so depressing so quickly. Also, these characters are much more, I don't want to use the term morally gray, but much more complicated, I think. In this one, we're dealing with, like, what if the character that you're rooting for is also an abuser? What if he is assaulting his girlfriend? Like, what if he's a horrible man, you know? So yeah, the first chapter of this book was a lot heavier than something I was quite ready to take on this month mentally. So I'm going to keep working on it, but yeah, this is unexpectedly, like, immediately very heavy. Like I said, I expect heaviness, but not to be kind of punched in the gut that hard in 80 pages. So that is my Another Country update. We'll be continuing working on it, because then I also had to put this down because something monumental happened. Oathbound came out. If you want to hear me go a little bit more in depth, because I don't want to talk your ear off, a little more in depth, I made a video called Where My Lore Started, where I talk about books that make me feel a little nostalgic. And at the end of that video, I do a full review of Legendborn. I just love this series so much. And what's crazy is I reread Legendborn, like, 2 years ago when bloodmarked came out. So this was my third time reading Legendborn, my second time reading bloodmarked. The books get better when you reread them. Usually I get a little bored where I'm like, oh, you know, I know the beats, I know the story. No. I think also, I talk about it more in my other video, but last year or the year before when I was reading bloodmarked, I was so excited about it that I just kind of sped read. Honestly, I was so interested in how it was going to end that I was reading too fast. And I feel like because of that, I left the book a little confused, because there's a lot of characters introduced in the second book. And I just felt like, whoa, a little confused. It felt a little slow. It felt a little weird. So when I read it the second time, I was not confused. I did not feel like the plot was too slow. It was a great time. You know, I loved it. So if anything, the reread just made the books even better in my eyes. If you don't know, Legendborn is a young adult fantasy series. It follows Bree Matthews, who is a girl who just started an early college program at Chapel Hill, a university in North Carolina. She, on her very first day of school, witnesses a bunch of demons attacking things. And there are kids that are fighting these demons. And when they try to erase her memory, because, like, no one is supposed to see the demon, whatever, she realizes that the magic they're using feels very similar to this very weird feeling she had when she learned that her mother passed away. And she starts to second guess what actually happened to her mom. She believes there's some kind of conspiracy. So she decides that she is going to infiltrate this weird demon hunting secret society on campus, because the magic doesn't work on her. All right. Memory not erased. She's going to infiltrate this society so that she can learn more about the magic and hopefully learn more about her mother's death, which may or may not be a murder. We follow her from there, so it's very like Shadowhunters, but also based with King Arthur, which I love, but also based in like American history. Also Bree's experience in the modern day, like this is 2020, like very modern day. Bree's experience as a young black girl, she's 17, in predominantly white spaces and in the American South and things like that. There's just so much happening, but Tracy is able to weave it in such a brilliant way. I would argue it is currently the best YA fantasy series happening right now. Like, if you love, I can't say enough about it. Oathbound without any spoilers, this is the first book where we get multiple POVs. This also takes place, the first 2 books combined take place over the course of like 4 months. Oathbound itself takes place over 4 months. So we have a lot more time, we have a lot more characters, a lot more story going on. I loved it because I love every single character that Tracy writes, but I do think there were parts of it that to me felt a little long, but again, some of it was just me being impatient because I was like, I need to know what is happening. A lot of characters are like hanging in very precarious places in the plot, let's just say. And I really wanted to know what was going to happen to them. Yeah, there were parts that I wish I would have sped up, especially the last half of the book. It almost felt like this was 2 books combined, not in a completely bad way, but the second half of the book is suddenly kind of becomes a heist kind of situation. I loved that, but I also felt like, why was it going on for quite as long as it was? So Oathbound, still absolutely loved it. I think it's setting us up for an absolutely insane 4th book and hopefully last book of the cycle. I don't want to go into too much spoilery, but I think that her writing, Tracy, from the very first page, my jaw was on the floor just in terms of her writing chops. Legendborn and bloodmarked were already written so beautifully. Oathbound, words cannot describe. Like, truly, she is just growing so rapidly in her skill as a storyteller. I'm just honestly honored that I get to read this series as it's coming out. Like, it's truly a gift. And yeah, I would say if you didn't like bloodmarked, because I feel like a lot of people that I know felt that way on the first read, where they were kind of like, it felt a little slow, like we kind of meandered and I kind of wanted to get back to the plot. Try reading it again. Try reading it again. And I took a break with Oathbound at like almost exactly the 50% mark. I saw so many of my friends being like, the ending of Oathbound traumatized me and I will not recover. So I kind of wasn't ready for that. I wasn't ready for it to end. Something about doing a reread and reading literally thousands of pages following these characters, I just didn't want to leave the world. So I took a 1-day break because that's all I could do. And I feel like that actually helped me, because if I had just plowed through it and tried to jump into that like second part with the heist and all of that, I think I would have gotten a little tired. So yeah, I would recommend taking a little 50% break. But oof, Tracy, just so good. Just so good. And again, like, for example, this book I was talking about felt like young adult, and so I didn't really jive with it. I had quite a few people comment when I was talking about it on Instagram saying that they weren't interested in Legendborn because it's YA. This does not read like YA. It is categorized as YA because the characters are younger. They are ages like 16 to 20 throughout the books. It doesn't read like YA. Like, their maturity level, the things that they are faced with, the themes that we are tackling are just as mature, honestly, as a lot of romance adult books that I read. Yeah, it's kind of an ageless adventure, and I really think if you are, the only thing holding you back is that it's young adult, forget about it. Thank you very much. That is getting off my soapbox. Yep. Next up, this was actually recommended by a couple people when I was talking about Irish history, talking about small things like these, etc. I read a book called All the Bad Apples, and this is another one where I feel like it was a younger YA book, so it didn't hit for me simply because of the audience, the intended audience of this book, but I do recommend it if you are interested in specifically like the history of Ireland with abortion, with unwed mothers, with just pregnancies in general, unfortunately, which means it's an incredibly dark book. And we're just talking about generations of women going through incredible hardships and basically being cursed because of Ireland and its history with young mothers, unwed mothers, etc. So I did learn a lot, and it was laid out in a very engaging way. We're following a girl whose sister goes missing. She starts to find clues that lead her kind of throughout Ireland in the hopes of finding her sister, but she ends up learning about the history of her family curse, right? Yeah, so it was very dark. Wasn't exactly my style, again, just because of the level of the writing. I think it would be great for teens. But yeah, that's All the Bad Apples. Heavy stuff, though. Heavy stuff. And then I entered my hater era. For those who don't know, because I had someone ask this literally this morning, and it's snowing. Hold on. What is that? What is going on? Okay. Anyway, so I started reading a bunch of ARCs, and an ARC is an advanced reader copy. So the publishing houses will give readers, reviewers, an ARC so that they can give their feedback, etc. Sometimes it's also just used as a marketing tool, so for people like me to kind of promote the book, etc. before it is published. That's what an ARC is. Okay, so it's not the 100% finished, polished version. So there could be some mistakes, there could be some changes made, but for the most part, the ARCs that I've read seem to be the finished copy, right? So I started off my reading list with A Land So Wide by Erin A. Craig. I really like Erin A. Craig. She writes fantasy, but she veers usually towards more gothic themes. She has just a very descriptive way of writing that she captures a certain atmosphere, and that's a different atmosphere for each book, which I think is really great. Like, she branches off into very different spaces. So she wrote, for example, House of Salt and Sorrow, or A House of Roots and Ruin, which is very like gothic, dark fairy tale, castles, seaside, princesses kind of thing going on. She also wrote Small Favors, which is very much like small East Coast wooded town, kind of culty, kind of like 17th century vibes, you know? So she's got range, and I appreciate that of her. So I was very excited to read A Land So Wide. And this follows a girl named Greer who is living in a town called Mistaken, which is in this very rural, like abandoned section of northern Canada, like almost in the Arctic Circle. And the reason that she and her village live there is because of the specific kind of trees that grow there. It's made them very rich, like it's just really great lumber for things, and so they are very well off living there, but because of a certain curse, which we'll get into, they can't leave the town after dark. Like, the town is kind of warded by these, like a circle of stones, and if you are outside of those stones after sunset, they like violently suck you back in. And the way that she wrote it, it just had this really eerie feeling to it. There are apparently these creatures that live in the forest, but there are also these things called the benevolence or something that apparently protect them. Like, it's very culty. I kind of compared it to the feeling that The Village gave me by M. Night Shyamalan. I loved the first 50%. I will say, and someone commented this, and honestly I like forgot her age because I couldn't believe it either. Our main character is allegedly 27 years old. There's no way that this girl is over 17 years old. Like, she is no. So that really threw me off. This is supposed to be her first adult book, and this was not. She was not an adult. And that's fine. If you just think of it maybe as a typo. Instead of 27, she's 17. Then it works, right? Loved the first 50%. Then when it's supposed to get interesting, and Greer, for various reasons, has to venture outside of Mistaken to save her town, save her boy, who's a little baker named Ellis, we love. It's supposed to get interesting. We're supposed to really experience the fantasy element of this book, and it was like it was written by a different person. It really read like first draft, whereas the first half was like so rich, and I was completely there. I was in the village. The second half was like she flipped a switch, and I wasn't connected to the characters. I couldn't visualize anything. Everything felt so fast. There were supposed to be like a bunch of really big emotional moments. I felt nothing. It was really bizarre. So I'm hoping it's coming out in autumn. I'm hoping that this is one of those arcs that has not been fully finished, and it will go through a couple rounds of edits, because what a way to fumble it. And she had such a great beginning. I would really, really love for that to be edited and turned around. But that is A Land So Wide. As it stands now, the arc, I wouldn't buy it, let's just say. I would get it at the library for sure. But come autumn, who knows? If you read it when it comes out, let me know if the ending has changed at all, because I want, the setup. Man, I should have loved it. That's A Land So Wide. Okay. All right. So, Katabasis. I have a whole live reading reaction to it, and thank God I do, because what a roller coaster this book was. So I went into it having no context. Like, I didn't know anyone who had read this book. So I was going in, I didn't know anybody's reactions to it. I was just like, this looks exactly up my alley in terms of premise. R.F. Kuang, I like her books like 80%. I always feel like there's a bit I could change, but I have very few authors that are like perfect, right? So I'm always willing to give her a chance because she comes up with these premises of stories that I'm like, oh, you just kind of took that out of my brain, didn't you? So I was just nothing but excited for this. And how bizarre. So Katabasis is about two PhD candidates, Alice and Peter, whose academic advisor has died, has gone to hell. And they really need recommendation letters to get jobs, especially in academia. And they need him back. So they go into hell together, even though they're kind of rivals. They go into hell together to fetch him, to bring him back, to get those recommendation letters, baby. Okay? I love any kind of descent into hell story. I really enjoyed, for example, Ninth House. And I was just excited for the buzz. Like, people are reading all of these books ahead of time to like prep for this book and things like that. I was just really excited. And the first two chapters were to die for, I thought. I loved that we start with Alice, no spoilers. We start with Alice drawing the chalk pentagram to open the portal to hell. Like, we are in the action immediately, and I really loved that. And then it kind of fell apart for me, unfortunately. I wrote it in a comment, but I will repeat that it was chapters 1, 2, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then the last chapter that were good. Everything else, chapters 3 through 17, I have no feeling towards them. Chapters 21 to the end, also no feelings. It was really strange that it had these like high highs and these incredibly low lows. I talk about it in my live reading reaction, but this really felt like a book I read called Alice in Quantum Land, which is an Alice in Wonderland retelling, but told in a way that teaches young people quantum physics. And I felt like this book really was that, where it's a academic rivals story using the plot as a vehicle. The plot isn't really the point. It's just a vehicle to teach us about various philosophers, various classics, various logic ideas, things like that. The plot wasn't the point. The characters weren't the point. So much of it was kind of just, for lack of a better word, info dump. It was really just a lot of information that didn't necessarily move the plot anywhere. So those parts specifically felt like she was just using the book as a tool to make these classics more accessible, for example, which is why I find that like doing the reading list, if you're the kind of person that likes to hear facts and be like, oh yeah, I know that, then do it. Read ahead of time. But if you're the kind of person that has a vague understanding of, for example, Dante's Inferno, which I think is the most important one, or the one she references the most, if you're okay with reading something and being like, oh, I vaguely remember that, yeah, and then she teaches it to you and you're like, got it, thanks, then don't read it. Like, she covers it all in there for you. I would only do the pre-reading if you want to be able to be like, yeah, I knew that. There's a few things you can pick up on and be like, I see what you did there. But yeah, I don't know. There were also just some things that I wonder are going to be edited, because I can't tell if she made a joke or not. Like, for one example, no spoilers, but she's going into like another part of hell, let's just say. She meets this person in hell and she's like, so what did you do? Like, why are you in hell? And the guy is like, rule number 1. We get like multiple paragraphs of him explaining that like you never ask somebody why they're here. Like, that's the number 1 rule of hell, blah, blah, blah. And then they get to the doorway of the next thingy, and the first thing that the gate guard says is, oh, hey, so what did you do to get to hell? Why are you here? And it didn't seem like it was meant to be a joke, or like we weren't supposed to be like, wow, that person has no manners or something. I don't know. There were just like a couple things that don't really make sense. And even the ending technically doesn't make sense based on the rules that R.F. Kuang had laid out about hell earlier in the book. So there's a part of me that wants to theorize that it's like a Sixth Sense thing and like everyone's actually dead. I feel like it could be fun to have more theories about this book, but I also just wonder if maybe it was kind of like a mistake in the writing. Like, I couldn't tell what was intentional. Yeah, it was just very strange. I would have liked to have formatted it differently, like in terms of we get some background about the characters really late in the book so that, I don't know, overall it was like a very disappointing and confusing read. I would only read it if that piques your interest. The idea of, oh, the plot doesn't necessarily matter. It's more of a vehicle to teach me things and to just talk about academia, because I'm much more of a character and plot driven reader. If you are one of those, I wouldn't go in with the highest of hopes. Because at least with Babel, when she did these like deep kind of info dumps and going really like deep dives into linguistics and history and things like that, it always fed back to the magic system. Like, she dumped all this info because it taught us about the world and it taught us about the magic and it taught us about our characters. But a lot of these info dumps in Katabasis don't ever come back to anything. They're just kind of there to be there. They're just kind of there so that the characters can argue. Also, if you're reading it because she said it was like a love story, and you're thinking there's romance, don't. So yeah, I would say go into it with certain expectations, and I went into it, I guess with different ones. I think some people are really gonna love it. Like, again, there's a type, and I'm just not that type, unfortunately. That was Katabasis. If you would like more of my spewing, my live reading reactions so that you can see me going through it, my previous video. Enjoy. After that, we are still reading Arcs, so this is not coming out yet. This is coming out, I think, in October. I read the new T. Kingfisher. When is she not ever writing a book? Like, she never stops, okay? T. Kingfisher's newest book, Hemlock and Silver. This is for the Sword Heart girlies. That's all I gotta say. This is a kind of Snow White retelling, but Snow White is a princess who is maybe being poisoned. We aren't sure. She's dying. And so the king reaches out to our main character, Anya, who is a physician, but like a poison specialist. And so she comes to the castle to try to figure out what is happening to Snow. Things go haywire from there. It's also like low-key a bodyguard romance, but not until very late in the plot, I would say. And the reason why I would say that this is specifically for people who love Sword Heart is because for me, Sword Heart's plot was kind of too small for it to be as long of a book as it was. So if you're okay with like a very slow moving plot, just so that you spend time with these characters more, this is for you. I wish it was, for me personally, I wish it was a lot shorter. I wish we saw a lot more of the interactions with Anya and her bodyguard much earlier. And we saw, honestly, I wanted more of them. The mirror magic, because there's mirror magic, is really cool, but it wasn't 100% for me. You know that I'm ride or die for T. Kingfisher, but I think that this was one that was just not for me, like not my pacing and not enough of what I love from T. Kingfisher, which is just the interactions and the banter between her characters. A lot of it was, this time was a lot more exploring the world and this new magic system that she created. But I do think some people will absolutely eat it up, specifically the Sword Heart girls. So that is Hemlock and Silver. My legs are asleep. Gotta shift. Okay. After that, also coming out in autumn, which is the perfect time to read this book. I read the new C.G. Drews. This is the same author who wrote Don't Let the Forest In, which I really enjoyed. I read Hazelthorne. Hazelthorne takes place on a billionaire's sprawling grounds, his mansion and his giant forest that he owns. And no spoilers because it happens on like the second page. Our billionaire dies mysteriously. He has left all of his money to his strange, sickly ward. Not his son, but like someone he has kind of adopted. He was like a family friend, and then a car accident killed his parents, and then also the parents of the billionaire's grandson. Laurie? Is that his name? Laurie and our main boy do not hang out because Laurie tried to kill our main character when they were little boys. So we get tangled up in this kind of, the only way I can describe it is like The Secret Garden, but murderous and gay and a sprinkle of Knives Out and just so much botany horror. Like this is horror is what it's categorized in. And so it's gruesome, it's yucky. The forest is very much alive. The plot moves quite slow because everything is described in so much detail. So for me, I actually really loved it because I felt so enveloped in this world. And I also felt like C.G. Drews just used words and described things in ways that kind of like The River Has Roots, just using language that I would have never thought of. And so it was just a very exciting thing to read in terms of just having new language to think about. I felt like I was covered in dirt while I was reading it. I mean, it was immersive, and I really think a lot of people aren't gonna like it because of the language. But if you liked Don't Let the Forest In and you're okay with like take that plot and turn it down like a little bit. There's a little bit less plot in this book and you just want vibes. Evil, murderous forest and creepy, dilapidated house vibes. Hazelthorne. There you go. Ooh, and then I feel like I was returning a book to the library and then this popped up. Why did no one tell me that there was a new short story by Alex E. Harrow? How dare. So Alex E. Harrow famously wrote Six Deaths of a Saint, which is a 35-page short story that was my favorite book of last year. I mean, like truly an incredible feat. So when I saw that she had another short story, I dropped everything. And it is called The Knight and the Butcherbird. Weird. Also only about 40 pages. Also really immersive. Not better than Six Deaths of a Saint, but quite interesting. This was much more like dystopian. Again, she just chose to describe things, or she just like chose settings and things like that that were new, that were different. I'm just kind of tired of the same setting for every kind of fantasy that I've been reading recently. We are following a girl. I think this is after some like massive apocalypse. Like this is far in the future. The world is pretty much decimated. Like I don't know if it was like a nuclear war or climate change or a mixture of all of those things, but yeah, the world's not a cool place to live. And we follow this girl who is living in this community in a holler. So I think this is meant to be kind of like Appalachian vibes. And she's living in a holler and she has reported that they have a demon that needs to be taken care of. And there's these kind of like roaming knights that come and they kill these demons. Once you learn what a demon really is and you get into I can't talk about it because I don't want to spoil it, but yeah, it was bizarre and weird and grungy and creepy and yeah, not my favorite, but just made me think. And again, it was original, it was new, and I really appreciate that. So this is much more, actually, you know what, low-key made me feel the same way that parts of Vandermeer's, oh my god, what's it called? Annihilation reminded me of Annihilation. I don't know if anyone else is gonna kind of like feel those feels, but that's what I got from it. So yeah, not my favorite of her work, but thankful that I read it. So The Knight and the Butcherbird. Very quickly, a DNF. Upon a Starlit Tide. Really should have loved this one. This is like a historical fantasy retelling of The Little Mermaid, but taking place in France in like the 1700s. I don't know. Okay, so this took so long to go anywhere. We start off immediately with our main character saving a sailor who was drowning, and she went out in the ocean and saved him. And apparently you aren't supposed to do that. You're only supposed to save sailors if they've washed up on shore. If you take them while they're still in the water, you're messing with the balance. The ocean's gonna want him back, you know? So she's playing with fire here. Turns out he's a very important person, but she's also a very important person. She's part of some like very rich family. I read probably 40% of this book, and we were just getting ready for a ball. This special person is reunited with his family, and they're like, wow, as a thank you for saving our son, we're gonna throw a ball. And then we spend hundreds of pages just getting ready for the ball, like fighting with her sisters over, well, her sisters fight. She doesn't care about dresses. Her sisters fighting over what color silk they're allowed to wear. Like, it moved so slow. And our main character was annoying, and I just wasn't interested at all. I pushed a lot further through than I should have, because I wanted to know if it got interesting, because I have a feeling that the person she saved is actually the bad guy, and I wanted to know if I was right, you know. But I'm just not interested. It was so slow. That was Upon the Starlit Tide. If anyone has finished it and you want to spoil it for me, you should definitely do that in the comments and just put spoilers ... Okay? Thank you. And now we reach my peak hater moment, and I'm so sorry, and my battery's probably gonna die in the midst of this, so I also apologize for that. I read Sunrise on the Reaping. Here's the thing. This is my 100% disclaimer. You don't need to listen to this review. Don't listen to me, because I always thought I was a Hunger Games fan. It was a big part of me growing up, you know, I was in that era when it was coming out, and, you know, I was of the Hunger Games age. I thought I was a Hunger Games fan until I met Hunger Games fans. This book is for the super fans of the Hunger Games. I felt it kind of with A Battle of Songbirds and Snakes, where people were much more strongly affected by certain things than I was. I thought that that was at least interesting because President Snow as a character is so vastly different from Katniss, Peeta, and in this book, Haymitch. So to see into his brain was super gross, honestly. But with Sunrise on the Reaping, without having an intense emotional connection to the characters already from the Hunger Games, I just kind of felt like I was reading the Hunger Games again. As I was reading it, I hit moments where I was like, oh, this is supposed to emotionally damage me. And I didn't feel emotionally damaged because I just didn't. It was just a lot of Easter eggs. And there is, if you actually like look at what Suzanne is trying to say in terms of looking into politics and war and what we're putting children through, absolutely value to it. But in terms of like, I was seeing all of my friends sobbing after reading this book and being like emotionally devastated, and I just wasn't, because it felt kind of just like fan service. But if you are a fan of the Hunger Games, read it. Like, that's why I say you can kind of ignore my review, because I'm not the audience, I guess. I found myself kind of skimming at points because I was like, oh, this is beat for beat. Like, especially when we were in the arena, there were a lot of moments where I was like, I'm just watching the Hunger Games in a different font. It is, but I just wanted something a little bit different. Like, we basically just go the Reaping, the beginning, like when we do all the interviews and the costumes and blah blah blah, and then we go into the arena, and then we have the aftermath, and it just felt, you know. We also, in terms of the love interest, we're following Haymitch, and he has his girl, but we never see her, so we just have Haymitch waxing poetic about her all the time, and I know nothing about her, so I just have to be like, okay, Haymitch, like, I'm sure she's a great girl, you know. Like, we get snippets, but I didn't feel like she was a real person. She just kind of felt like, I don't know. So again, with like this lack of connection I had with things, when I knew I should have had a connection to them, you know. So yeah, Sunrise on the Reaping was a miss just because I guess I'm not as much of a Hunger Games fan as I thought I was. And I'm very excited for people who love the Hunger Games. Like, I've watched so many videos. I ended up watching a lot of vlogs by my friends who were really impacted by it, and I loved watching them go through it. And honestly, it made me appreciate it more because they picked up on all of those tiny little Easter eggs. And I was like, oh yeah, if I had really known that, that would have emotionally impacted me. But standing by itself as someone who is just like a person who loved the books and loved the movies at one point in their life, just didn't hit me as much as it could have if I was, you know, the bigger fan. So that was Sunrise on the Reaping. Sorry, but that's my truth. Okay, I don't know why I didn't write this down, but also in the beginning of this month, I read about a third of We Do Not Part by Honggang. Very excited to get my hands on this. I love Honggang. This is one that I'm going to take my time with. How do I dive into this? This is about a woman who is and is not Honggang. I think that that's what really kind of threw me for a loop in the beginning, is because we are meeting our main character and it just felt like it was a memoir. Our main character is an author who wrote a best-selling novel about the Gwangju uprising, and we kind of follow her down that, like, what a dark spiral that led her down and all this stuff. And I was like, Honggang, are you okay? Like, what's going on? But it's not Honggang. It's Kyungha is the main character's name. So I was just like a little bit unsure of what I was reading. But basically our main character's friend has been in some accident, and she needs our main girl to go to Jeju to stay there and look after her pet birds. while she is recovering from this accident in Seoul. And it's like she gets caught in a snowstorm. I just got to in Jeju in the snowstorm. And I was reading it on the bus. She was on a bus going through a snowstorm. I was reading this on a bus going through snow. So that was great. But yeah, it's a little meandering right now. And yeah, I'm gonna kind of try to take my time digesting this one. We do not part. But what I am reading now, what I finished and what I am still in the middle of is, weirdly, a surprise to you and to me, I'm reading Swordcatcher again. I finished Swordcatcher, and as of right before starting filming this video, I hit 100 pages into the sequel, The Ragpicker King. So I actually didn't, I read Swordcatcher last year or 2 years ago, whenever it came out. 3 years ago? I think it was 3 years ago. I had my issues with it. It's Cassandra Clare's first non-Shadowhunter book. I had my issues with it. And I wasn't chomping at the bit for the next book. But it came out recently and a lot of people were asking me about it. I saw some fan art about it. I was kind of and I had just been on this kind of meh hate spree, other than Hazelthorne. Don't worry, Hazelthorne, I got you. But I just kind of I know that Cassandra Clare's writing, for better or for worse, can suck me into a new world, and I just was missing that. Legendborn just reminded me of what reading a great series feels like, and I just wanted to be completely enveloped again. And I was like, Cassandra Clare, do your worst. So I reread Swordcatcher this whole weekend, and you know what? My issues with it, significantly less. On the reread, I think I was just jarred. So Swordcatcher is about, oh my god, how do I explain this book? Swordcatcher follows our main character, who is the bodyguard / body double of the prince. Chaos reigns. Okay, we're following the prince, his body double, and then we're also following a young physician named Lynn, and it's just political intrigue, crazy stuff going on. Great. My issues with it really were that, number one, this is her first adult book as well, and I think she thought, ooh, okay, adult, I have to add weird sex stuff. So a lot of the book takes place in a brothel, and there's just a lot of casual sex happening on the periphery, all the time. I don't know. So I was just sort of Cassie, I feel like there are other things you could have done, but that's fine. Second is her world building. I appreciate what she was trying to do, but she has all these different kingdoms, and they are all just very obvious stand-ins for real countries / cultures. The main place is called Castellan or Castleton. I don't remember, but anyway, it's called Castellane? Castleton? I don't know. Linguistically, at least, according to the author's note, is supposed to be France. Okay, so they're pretty much one for one, right? These countries. And she has these two countries. She has Shenzhou, which is supposed to be China, and I don't think we've ever heard the language spoken, but mainly she talks about the food, and the food is very obviously Chinese. But then the one that I have problems with, the one that I had the major problem with upon my first read, was Kumjoseon is the name of a country, and it's Korea. But it's you couldn't have just come up with a different name. Joseon, Kumjoseon means gold Joseon, which is a dynasty. It's what Korea kind of used to be called. You couldn't have picked a different name? You're just calling it Korea? What? And then one of the characters is from Kumjoseon, and she curses at one point, and she just uses Korean. She just says shibar. And I was like, Cassie, you made up all these fake languages for all these different countries, and you're just going to use Korean for this country that you named Korea? I don't know. So I had an issue with that. And everyone in Korea, their last names are Kang, Nam, Han, Korean last names. So I was a little bit you could have tried a little harder. But on the second read, it didn't stand out to me as much as it did. It was just jarring on my first read to be wow, Cassie, that was kind of lazy of you. It's also quite interesting though, because Lynn is of a particular culture that is clearly Jewish, and Cassandra Clare is Jewish, and so a lot of it is Lynn's whole story and her kind of connection to magic and certain things is very much the story of the Jewish people, and where she's living is supposed to be kind of a Jewish ghetto, I would say. So I think that there were some parts of it that the world building and the very obvious references to real life were quite interesting, and then there were some times where the connections to real life just felt kind of lazy and tired. I will say Cassandra Clare can write a lot of characters well. Like, she just is able to write multiple characters that all have ties that make sense. I also didn't like, upon my first read, I didn't like the romance because I didn't get it. And you know what? I get it. And I'm getting it even more now with the Ragpicker King. At first I was sort of like, Lynn, honey, what are you seeing in this man? And for the man, I was like, where is this coming from? It made more sense for some reason on the second read. And with Ragpicker King, it is doubling down in true Cassandra Clare style. How will this be a 4-book series? I have no idea, because Swordcatcher and Ragpicker King are both 600 pages and so much has happened, and I just don't want her to spread this plot to make it 4 books. So we'll see. I can't give you my feelings on Ragpicker King, but for Swordcatcher, honestly, my critiques of it from the first read, the second read kind of made me hate it less. I actually really liked it. I had a lot of fun. I just, again, haven't felt fully like sucked into a fantasy world where we've just got so many people we love and so much like this political intrigue. And yeah, I surprisingly had a much better time than I thought I would rereading Swordcatcher. So if you're just kind of pattering around looking for something, give it a try. Hopefully the first 100 pages of Ragpicker King has been really good. Hopefully that continues. I feel like it's gonna get messy. That's life. So yeah, wow, that was my March. This is the most I have read. Like, I was looking at my story graph, and in terms of pages read, it was like, I read a lot. I was just like, I was just very, because I wanted to read Legendborn so badly, I would just like knock out full days. Like, in my schedule, I would be like, do not contact me. From morning until night, I will be reading Legendborn. So I feel like that's why I got so much reading done, is this was like a month to read. That's that. Let me know what you're reading. A lot of these were recommendations from you. Let me know your thoughts about everything. Sorry about Sunrise on the Reaping. Again, not necessarily the book's fault. Just wasn't for me. And yeah, I can't wait for August to hear what you guys think of Katabasis, because I think it's going to be polarizing, but that's RF Kwong style. So she did her thing. I will catch you guys in the next one. I've got some fun content coming up. And yeah, thank you again to Squarespace. You can go to squarespace.com right now and set up your website, play around with the templates, etc. And when you're ready to launch, squarespace.com/caricanread to get 10% off your first website or domain. All of that is in the description box. And thank you as always. I will catch you hopefully next time. It will be spring. The blue sky is gone again. It's probably going to start snowing. I'll see you when I see you. If you want cherry blossom spring in Korea content, you got to go to Caricakes, my other vlog, my vlog channel. I will see you there. All right. Catch you later. Bye.